Hello, this is Matt from Unbearable73. This video is about the movie Highlander, which is my favorite movie, and its cursed franchise. Cue the video.
From the dawn of time we came, moving silently down through the centuries, living many secret lives, struggling to reach the time of the gathering, when the few who remain will battle to the last. No one has ever known we were among you. Until now. MacLeod.
When we first met, you felt ill, remember? That wasn't the first time you felt that sensation, was it?
No. When the MacLeods fought the Frasers, and a black night, I felt it then. Only it was different, more painful.
That black night was the Kurgan. It's because of him that I sought you out.
Who is the Kurgan? And where does he come from?
The Kurgans were an ancient people from the steppes of Russia. For amusement, they tossed children into pits with hungry dogs to fight for meat.
The Kurgan. He is the strongest of all the immortals. He is the perfect warrior. If he wins the prize, mortal man would suffer an eternity of darkness.
How do you fight such a savage?
With heart, faith, steel. In the end, there can be only one.
One of my key precepts for judging entertainment comes down to, does it make you want more, or do you feel like it should have ended sooner or was a waste of your time? 1986's Highlander certainly does that for me. All three cases that I said above. And many others feel the same way. Unfortunately, with all the sequels, spin-offs, and side projects, the more that we have gotten, the more it just made us hate ever getting most of what we ever got. So you can see this is the cover to the Blu-ray of Highlander, the remastered version, the director's cut version of the first movie. At some point, I will do a review of just the first Highlander film. And I will link to an old movie reviewer from, some of you might remember a guy named Spoony. His Highlanders, I will link to them below because they are classic. They are the greatest Highlander reviews of the things he did, of anything, you know. Too bad he doesn't do reviews anymore, but whatever. So what is Highlander? First, let's get a timeline up here so we can see what we're talking about, so to speak. I forgot to add this one in. Sorry about that, guys. Bear with me a moment. Okay. So what are we looking at? Well, the first tab I want to click on is the Highlander Timeline. This is basically all the Highlander products that came out, starting in 1986 with Highlander the movie, 1991 Highlander II The Quickening, 1992 Highlander the series, 1994 Highlander the animated series, 1995 Highlander III The Sorcerer, 1998 another Highlander spin-off called The Raven, 2000 Highlander Endgame, which is Highlander IV, 2001 a web series called Highlander The Mythos Chronicles. Not many of you have heard of that, but it's very good. 2007 gave us Highlander The Search for Vengeance, an anime Highlander movie. And 2007 gave us the worst film ever made, Highlander The Source. Okay, so let's I'll hide that for now, since you have the timeline. And I will call up some information that we will go over. So this is the Highlander Wiki, which is pretty good. if you guys want to reference anything more in depth that I'm mentioning. But basically, Highlander is a Fandom franchise that was generated by the 1986 Highlander movie starring Christopher Lambert, Sean Connery, and Clancy Brown. It was Clancy Brown's first big role, and Christopher Lambert's first big U.S. role. Well, no, he did Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, which is an excellent Tarzan movie, by the way. And then that led to this being another, what they thought would be a tremendous U.S. role, but history, history did not dictate that. The movie was created when Gregory Wadden wrote a script for a class assignment while he was a student at UCLA. He's inspired by Ridley Scott's masterpiece, The Duelists, which is this film. And if you haven't seen The Duelists, you should go out and watch it now. It is, aside from having some of the best sword fights you've ever seen in a movie, it is an amazing film to watch. Okay. Wadden's script was so good that his teacher advised him to submit it to an agent. His original script was rewritten quite a bit for the film. Russell Mulcahy was the director, and he did much of the rewriting, but Whedon worked with him. And William Penzier, the producer, worked on it as well. But the broad concept of immortals coming down through time, fighting for some sort of being compelled to fight to gain power, that was basically what he wrote. And he structured the characters similar to what we got in the movie. The biggest change was that Ramirez, the character played by Sean Connery, and the Kurgan were made to be far older in the film than they were in the script. And the nature of the Kurgan changed. The Kurgan in the script was a sort of old European knight, whereas in the movie he became something else entirely. Another thing that changed in the movie was the immortals were all made sterile, whereas in the script they weren't. And you'll watch that there's a release of energy when one immortal kills another that in the movie and succeeding franchise that was not present in the script. And the concept of the prize was interesting in the script. And okay, anything else would be kind of a spoiler. So why is this? Why do I love this film? Okay, well, many love this film. Well, this film combined action with a definitive goal, a definitive goal for the characters to reach. Meaning, they weren't just fighting for the hell of it, and it wasn't just like plot. It wasn't just enough plot to connect the fighting scenes. The fighting structure to the actual plot of the film. Right? We have three particularly well-defined main characters who were played by some very charismatic actors. And the movie also had a phenomenally deep lore for what we got. And I will ultimately, I think I said, do a review of just the Highlander movie itself at some point. But especially because of a remake that might be pending, which I will do a video about probably next week. But for now, the remainder is just to discuss the Highlander franchise and to help newbies navigate the dangerous waters we call the Highlander franchise. So the short answer for this is the only movie that you should watch that is great is Highlander the movie, the 1986 film. If you love the movie and you get that, want to see more a bit from it, where you felt you hear more, and you want to navigate some risky waters, well, I will go over the whole sort of franchise with you, and at the end tell you, as a person who's watched all the Highlander, I will, and Willie takes one for the team, so we know what to avoid. I will tell you what sucks and what you should utterly completely avoid. Okay? So we saw the timeline of Highlander. The first sequel to Highlander was Highlander II: The Quickening. It was abysmally horrible. It was one of the worst films ever made. And so people understand when we say that. Generally speaking, people will say, well, there are A films, B films, and C films. B films are like B movies, like a lot of those horror films, like The Deadly Mantis or, The Beastmaster, for example, to name some sort of genre films. We all know. But they're really B films. C's are like those film student films, ultra small studios, which very few ever see, but now in the age of Amazon and other streaming services put them all online, they all get out there. So when we're talking about worst film ever made, we're really talking about those A-grade films, meaning something that was intended to be a major release and not something that was either B-grade to begin with or was was just so low, poorly budgeted that it couldn't possibly be a. Highlander 2 was intended to be a major film because Highlander 1, even though it didn't do too well in the US, was a worldwide hit, especially in Europe. People loved it and developed a massive sort of cult fan following that grew every year, every month that it was out. So Highlander 2, the way the market worked, they knew they'd make money on it in Europe, and they had a targeted budget, and Russell Mulcahy and Gregory Wedden were removed from the film by the people financing it because they basically wanted a B-grade hack and slash action film, and what we got out of Highlander 2 was basically trash that no one liked. So if you're interested in Highlander 2, if you feel the need to watch it, there's Russell Mulcahy eventually came back with Wedden, and they edited it, cut out some scenes, and readjust some dialogue to make a far better film. So it became a legitimate sort of. If the Renegade version of Highlander 2 had come out to begin with, the director's cut, we would have been disappointed in the sequel, but it would have been an okay sequel. So what came next? Well, in movie terms, what came next was Highlander 3. Highlander 2 was so poorly received, but there was still money to be made there, that they made a direct sequel to Highlander, skipping Highlander 2 as if it never existed. Highlander 3, The Sorcerer, starred Christopher Lambert and Mario Van Peebles. And people don't know who he is now. Back then, he was more of a pop actor type, but the character he played, Kane, in this film was an excellent villain. And this film, had it been Highlander 2, it wouldn't have been as good as Highlander 1, but people would have enjoyed it. Okay, so it captured the tone of Highlander, and it made it sort of adequate. Within the mechanics of the Highlander movie, it made a successful sequel. Now, the next two films I will skip briefly because I have to tell you about the Highlander TV series first. Because the next two films require you to understand one thing about Highlander. You already heard I mentioned that there are two continuities, Highlander to Highlander 2 and Highlander to Highlander 3, right? Well, the TV series, Highlander the series, starring Adrian Paul, Christopher Lambert guested in the first episode, was intended originally to be a prequel to the first film. Because spoilers, it's very tough to do a sequel to the movie Highlander. I won't spoil how, but I'll just say it's very tough. Okay, and so it started out that way, but it proved to be very popular. Actually, in some ways, it was more well received in the U.S. than the original Highlander film was, and so by the end of the first season, they had decided instead of doing a prequel, they were going to alter the continuity slightly such that you could have stuff happening after the Highlander film. So roughly speaking, in the timeline of the Highlander TV series, the first season happens, Highlander the movie happened at some point in there, and then the rest of Highlander the series happens. Now, Highlander the series, especially the second and third seasons, was very good, but it's worth watching all 7 seasons. Even though half the episodes after the 4th season are not great, there's still a lot of cool episodes in there. And it continues the strong part of Highlander, the movie, where the fight scenes are part of the plot. In other words, whenever you got to a fight scene, it worked out due to the plot. So from Highlander 3, Highlander the series, we have several forks, as you would say. When Highlander the series ended, they wanted to do a spin-off starring a female immortal, and so they made Highlander the Raven. And basically in the 6th and 7th season, there were 4 or 5 pilots for that, and it turns out that none of the immortal characters generated any pull with the fans, so they went with Elizabeth Grayson, who played a character named Amanda, a 1,000-year-old immortal on the Highlander the series. Good actress, incredibly beautiful and charismatic woman. Had all the makings where she could have been a good lead for a spin-off series, and this picture of her is fairly recent. So she's like 60 now. So she's a person who could have done a show for 6-7 years and looked like she was immortal. She knows how to keep herself in shape. Obviously, a very beautiful woman. Unfortunately, they gave her crap. utter and complete crap. They severely changed the nature of her character, and basically you got crap. You know? So the next two Highlander films, Highlander Endgame, which was absolute garbage, or Highlander 4 as it's called someplace, was a sequel to the Highlander TV show continuity. And then the last film, which was only made because they had to make a, contractually speaking, they had to make a film for Adrian Paul to star in a solo Highlander film, and they made him an executive producer, and it was garbage, was Highlander the Source. It's literally the worst movie ever made. And when I say worst, in this particular case, unlike what I said before about A, B, and C grade films, this is a Z grade film. Like, Plan 9 from Outer Space is 100 times better than this. Every Crow sequel they ever made is better than this. In fact, I first watched a version I got with no special effects, and that version is actually better than the version with the special effects. This movie was just laughably bad. And watch Spoony's review down below if I can find it on YouTube to understand why. And so there was a Highlander animated series, utter complete garbage. There were 2 Highlander video games. The first one didn't work, and it sucked. For the 10 minutes you could play it. The second one was based on the horrible Highlander animated series. It was on, I think, Sega Genesis. No, it was a CD game. What was that system? I don't remember, but it was horrible. It was utterly and completely horrible. Okay, the one thing that came out in the Highlander franchise, which is almost as good as the first movie, was an anime film completely on its own continuity, have nothing to do with the first film other than conceptually similar. It was called Highlander: The Search for Vengeance in 2007. Excellent animation, very good plotting. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's about a 7 to 8. Worth one watch for sure. More than that, I don't know, but it's very good. You know, there are about 9 or 10 Highlander novels which take place with the Highlander TV series. They're pretty good for the most part, and there have been a couple of comic series over the year. The only ones worth reading are the ones from Dynamite. I think there were 3 4-issue miniseries. Okay. Let's see. So what it comes down to is this: if you're interested in Highlander, I'll give you the short list. Okay. Watch the first film, Highlander the movie, and you can stop right there. I mean, you don't have to watch a single other thing to enjoy everything you're going to get out of this franchise, and possibly the reboot that's coming, which I'll talk about in another video. If you want to explore it a little more, Highlander 3: The Sorcerer is worth a watch. Highlander the TV series is worth a watch, but you're gonna find yourself kind of skimming through half the episodes, except for seasons 2 and 3, which were pretty good overall. Highlander: The Search for Vengeance is certainly worth a watch, and as I mentioned, the novels and the comics. And if you want to see Highlander bad enough, watch the Renegade edition. One more thing I should mention about Highlander the movie: watch the director's cut. I will link below if you want to help support me. I'm linking to a couple of items as well from Amazon, my Amazon affiliate links, to the director's cut of Highlander, to Highlander 3, and to Highlander: The Search for Vengeance. So, but you watch the Highlander director's cut. If they had released the director's cut in the U.S., I have a feeling it would have made probably double the gross it made and been considered to be a better film than it was. You know? So this is Matt from Unbearable. This is my Highlander overview video. I will definitely have another Highlander video about the reboot that's being talked about. And I just wanted to do this video first to give you, so you understand why my overall view on this franchise. The fact that I love the Highlander movie. It is my favorite movie of all time. The only things even close to it are the original Transformers animated movie from 1986, also, to another good year. And that's pretty much it. I mean, everything else is below those two. You know? So this is Matt from Barrel again, and I am out of here. Have a good day. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you dislike it, smash the dislike button. It's up to you, free will. Subscribe if you would like. Goodbye.